Welcome! Today we're going to talk about this 2020 Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus. Not the most advanced Tesla. It's actually probably one of the more simpler Teslas, smaller battery, rear-wheel drive. But the one ace in hole that this one has is it has the full self-driving capability, which right now is a $12,000 purchase, or you can subscribe to it for $200 a month. But when you subscribe to it, you never own it. When you own full self-driving, basically you're entitled to all future updates. I have a Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus. Mine's a little bit older, 2019, and I've had it for about a year and a half, and I've been using the full self-driving for a year and a half, and I've had multiple updates, and while it's far from perfect, far from being able to drive by itself unsupervised, I'm amazed at how much it's improved in the past year and a half. It's improved by leaps and bounds, so I can only determine that, in a couple more years, maybe I'd say maybe 2 to 5 years, that they'll finally crack it, and you'll have a full self-driving vehicle. What does that mean in the future? It could mean a lot of things. Nothing's guaranteed, but speculating, ultimately one goal is to have robo-taxis. So if you do have the full self-driving capability and they can solve it, all of a sudden you have a vehicle that's capable of driving on its own. So it's like having a full-time chauffeur at your beck and call to drive you or drive the car wherever you want. So if you want it to be a Uber for you and make money instead of just sitting there in your parking space, it can do that. Potentially, they have to obviously crack full self-driving and get regulatory approval for it to drive by itself. Those are all possibilities in the future. Or maybe you can take a nap, work, maybe you can have a couple of drinks and sit in the back seat and it can drive you home without a worry of a DUI. That's all possible stuff in the future. Right now, it does drive for itself most of the time. I'd say it's like having a 15 or 16-year-old kid you're trying to drive. For the most part, 90% of the time it's smooth sailing, but there are issues where it gets confused and it might do something a little bit, nerve-wracking, so you need to pay attention and keep your hand in the wheel. But I can tell you, I use the full self-driving pretty much all the time while I'm driving, and I know its limitations, so I'm not scared or nervous. I know areas where it gets tripped up, but it takes a big mental workload off you to have the car take over the workload of driving. I'm just sitting here with my hand in the wheel supervising, and the car is doing the work for me. And it's fun. It's fun to see the progression of the software, see it get better, see it grow and learn. And they're using a lot of artificial intelligence now in the full self-driving, and we're probably maybe another couple of weeks away from another big update where we'll even get any better. So I'll do a quick walk around, and more importantly, we'll get behind the wheel and I'll show you how the full self-driving works. That's really exciting stuff. And for $12,000, we're not asking $12,000 more for this Tesla. Maybe we're asking maybe a couple $1,000s more for this Tesla versus one that doesn't have it. So if you're looking for full self-driving, rather than buying like a Model 3 and then then paying $12,000 for the software, it's better to get a used one like this that already has it. And one thing, how do you know that it actually has a software and it's not subscribed to? Well, you can see premium connectivity has the expiration date. There's no expiration date here, so that means that it comes with the vehicle. So if you're looking at one, that's a good way to tell. And you can also take a look at the app or the software screen logging in the computer, and it'll show the software on there too, the full self-driving capability. Okay, so this is a Standard Range Plus, about 40,000 miles. So the Standard Range Plus is rear-wheel drive, has a fully charged range, EPA range of about 250 miles, but you do use a little, the batteries do lose some of their juice. They lose some of their efficiency over time. So this being a couple years old, probably full charge is not 250 miles anymore. It's probably more like 230 miles. And then Tesla, since this one has lithium-ion batteries, they use a different battery technology in some of the newer rear-wheel drive Model 3s. They use LFP batteries, which like to be charged to 100%, but this has a lithium-ion battery, and they only like to be charged to 80% for daily use. It's perfectly fine for a long road trip to charge it to 100%, but for daily use, for the happy and healthiness of your batteries, they recommend charging it to 80%. We usually charge them to 90% because we don't charge them every night. We probably have 10 Teslas, so for the most part, they're just sitting on the lot. So we just charge them to 90%, and then we'll charge them again as they get lower and stuff. They do use a little bit of energy. You have like the Sentry mode, which is a great theft deterrent device that will record any movement or any person messing or vandalizing or breaking into your car. It also works as a dash cam. While you're driving, you have a 360 dash cam. Pretty amazing stuff. This has a premium white interior. Looks really nice. So for daily use, right now it's charged a little over 90%. We have 182 miles. And sometimes, it depends on the way you drive. If you're going to drive on the highway 80 miles an hour. Teslas or EVs generally are less efficient going 80 miles an hour on the highway versus, you know, around the town driving. You know, temperature can also affect efficiency. So if it's really cold out or really hot out, you know, that can affect efficiency. And when the Tesla is just sitting there, it's going to, you know, use energy for the Sentry mode, and it might also use energy to keep the batteries cooler or hotter. They have advanced thermal management for the batteries just to keep them at a good temperature, because if batteries get really cold, they're really less efficient. So generally there's a thermal management going on in the batteries just to keep them at a good temperature, so when you use it, it's going to be more efficient. All right, so much to talk about. I could really talk an hour about this car, but we're not going to do that today. But I have lots of videos on our YouTube page about Teslas. So I probably have dozens of videos regarding different Teslas. So if you want to do a little bit of a deep dive, I got lots of information in there. And even though the Tesla is a compact, you still have lots of interior space. I'm 6'2". I'm pretty comfortable back here. Generally, you have more space in an EV or a Tesla Model 3 versus a comparable compact gas car, because you don't have a transmission tunnel going through the floor. You don't have a transmission and engine. Also, you don't have drive shafts and stuff like that. You don't have a gas tank. You don't have an exhaust system. So you're not hampered by the same limitations of a gas car. You have generally more trunk space. And then you have more space here. Usually there'd be a gas tank or an exhaust system, but since this doesn't have that, it's more efficient. It's also very safe. The autopilot and the FSD software make it safe, statistically speaking. Even though it's not perfect, generally you have safer driving statistics than a human when operating on autopilot or full self-driving. But also the way the vehicle is constructed, the Model 3 is constructed, makes it safe. In fact, the Model 3 is the safest vehicle on the road. When the NHTSA tested the Model 3, it's the safest vehicle they ever tested by pretty much every metric. So the software makes it safe, and the way it's built makes it safe. All right, well, let's get behind the wheel and take it for a spin and show you that FSD. Okay, so if you do buy a Tesla that has the full self-driving capability and you're not ready to jump in with both feet and start using full self-driving, you can actually put the system to just basically mimic what autopilot is, or just regular traffic aware cruise control. So you don't have to use a full self-driving right away when you get it. You can wait till you're comfortable. But we're going to put it in full self-driving. We're going to go to Dave's of Milton, which is 2 miles away. It's kind of a little bit of a complicated drive. We're going through the city, going through a rotary, a 2-lane rotary. It does actually get a little tripped up there. Every time it gets a software update, it gets that much better. Until eventually, it will hopefully be out of beta and it will really be a full self-driving vehicle without needing human supervision. We're in a parking lot right now. Generally, it doesn't work the greatest in parking lots right now, so I generally don't activate it until I'm ready to get in the road. Sometimes it will go a little bit too fast in parking lots. And you know, it's so quiet and smooth in here. It's like a sensory deprivation chamber, just a wonderful place to spend your daily commute. And I'm so spoiled by Teslas that I just find myself wanting to drive them. We actually had to go to Bremerton to pick up 4 vehicles. You know, my job as a used car manager is to purchase vehicles for the store. We're picking up 4 vehicles that we bought. Beautiful Range Rover Defender 2023, Range Rover Velar, and a Mercedes-Benz GLE 350, all amazing luxury SUVs. And one of them was a 2020 Model Y with enhanced autopilot. Guess which one I picked to drive home? The Model Y with the enhanced autopilot, because it's about a 30-mile drive back. And as nice as all the cars are, I'm used to Teslas. I own one myself, and just you know how nice that autopilot makes your life. It's just amazing. So autopilot is traffic aware cruise control. So the full self-driving is kind of like autopilot on super duper steroids. But honestly, even if you have a Tesla with regular autopilot, the regular autopilot's pretty amazing too. I would be happy with a Tesla with autopilot. You know, I love the full self-driving, but the regular autopilot's pretty great too. So I'm gonna put it on right here. So I put the stock down twice. You can see the steering wheel's highlighted in blue, so full self-driving is activated. You can see this little blue tentacle, that's the mind of the Tesla. It's kind of thinking about where it's going, and here we go. We've got a car here making a left-hand turn. It's yielding for that. And now we're going. It can be a little bit cautious, so what you can also do is you can give the throttle a little bit of a push, and it won't disengage the full self-driving, just to encourage the car to say, okay, you're good. Because sometimes it'll be a little bit too cautious, like pulling out or making turns. So if you see it's clear, you can give the throttle a little bit of throttle, and it'll just move the car along. Yeah, and Tesla just has so much data. There's 5 million Teslas on the road right now, and they're all gathering data and giving it back to Tesla. So Tesla's using that data to make the car safer, making it better. There's hundreds of thousands of Teslas right now operating full self-driving. So they're using that data, they're using it to train the AI and their supercomputer. So it can recreate events over and over again in the supercomputer. It can, you know, take driving situations and it can do it like a million times in, I don't know, 10 seconds or a minute. That's the thing with software. So it can use these supercomputers to train the software in it until it gets it down. And we're limited. I mean, a human can only have so much driving experience, right? We can only drive so much. But what's going to happen when Tesla has billions of miles of driving for their AI, their full self-driving capability? That could be like superhuman levels of driving. It could be able to predict and see things, maybe predict an accident or, you know, driving behavior that would lead to an accident that we wouldn't see far beyond. I mean, the sky's the limit. Data is kind of like the new oil. There's so much data in the last 10 years that we don't even know what to do with. So, you know, these AI, machine learning, the whole key is what companies can do with all this data and how they can leverage it and make it useful. And I think, you know, Tesla has a really big advantage in that aspect. I don't know of any car manufacturer that comes to close to Tesla with as much driving data, full self-driving data that they have. And their approach with full self-driving is a lot different than Waymo. See, there's a car pulled in front of us. In earlier builds, it would slam on the brakes, but it knew it would make it okay, which is nice. So it's definitely improving. Every software update, it just becomes more fluid. It drives more human-like. It's less herky-jerky. And then every once in a while, it's going to give me a nudge. It's going to say, hey, just put your hand in the wheel. Show me you're paying attention. If you don't, oh, here's a thing right here where it wants to go in that lane. So I'm just telling it no. That's the part where it gets tripped up. Sometimes it has a hard time deciding what lane to be on. Sometimes it's a little bit annoying when we're going to make a right-hand turn. It might all of a sudden want to change in the left-hand lane. So those are things that have to work through. And you can get kind of you know, you can get kind of picky, nitpick about things like that. But overall, I mean, it's pretty amazing what this car can do. This car is from 2020, and it got a software update. And it's using the hardware it had when it was built in 2020, the cameras and stuff, and it's using it to pretty much drive itself. Waymo and Cruise, they have to operate in geo-fenced locations that are pre-mapped out using LiDAR. Basically, a Tesla, their approach is you can just put it anywhere in the world, and it will be able to navigate and drive itself. So it's a lot more ambitious way of tackling full self-driving, but I think if they can achieve their goal, they'll have a big advantage over Waymo and Cruise, because also it's just using the cameras in the vehicle. It doesn't have expensive $150,000 LiDAR sensors on top of the car like Waymo and Cruise has, and cameras all over it. And their reasoning is that, you know, we have two cameras, we have two eyeballs. Some people have one eyeball and they can drive perfectly fine. So a computer that has, you know, 9 cameras, 12 cameras, 10 cameras all around it should therefore be able to drive better than a human, in not needing, you know, complicated radar or LiDAR. Some people say that they might need it. Uh-oh, I'm just gonna run that red light, huh? All right. All right, and off we are again. Got a green arrow. It's done pretty good. It got a little tripped up on the going into the turning lane, but I just, what you can do if it wants to, if it puts a signal on and wants to change lanes, you can just put the signal in the other direction and that will override it. Or to shut off the full self-driving, all you do is you put your foot in the brake or you push up on the gear selector and that will shut full self-driving off. And as far as the steering wheel goes, it can't overpower you. You can quickly take over, you know, with the steering wheel if it's going in a direction that you don't want to do it. It's designed on purpose, not being able to overpower you, you being able to take control at any time if you think that it's in a dangerous situation. We're just going to put it right back on. Then you have the scroll wheel right here where you can use it to set how fast it's going. Sometimes it might go too slow or too fast depending on the conditions. And you know, this is you know, driving around town and in urban situations like this is the hardest really for the full self-driving. If you live in the country, there's not a lot of traffic, not a lot of stop signs and stuff like that, or even more so driving on the highway, then the system's going to work more seamlessly. You know, the car's computer can only track so much stuff when you have, you know, pedestrians in a city, all these cars going in an intersection. The car is trying to track everything, it's trying to see everything. You can see here that the cameras are just trying to pick up everything around it. And sometimes, you know, the processor, the full self-driving computer, there's only so much data it can handle, and I think maybe it might be limited to maybe like 30 moving objects is kind of the limit that it can kind of track. Then it might get a little bit tripped up and confused. But it works really well. I mean, most of my driving is around the town, you know, in the city, very little highway. And like I said, I use the full self-driving all the time. And I do it on purpose because us using the full self-driving is helping making the software better. Us using this, Tesla is gonna anonymously use the data to train the AI, train the full self-driving software, make it better, and then in the future we'll get a software update and it will get better. So it's just kind of like a synergy. It just keeps on getting better and better. We help it get better, Tesla improves it, and then it gets better again. And then sometimes it gets tripped up on this turn, but we'll see how it does here. Oh, yeah, autopilot navigate complete. Yeah, it got a little confused right there in this kind of funny intersection, so I had to take over there. But yeah, that was the only intervention where I had to really take over. I had to override the lane change, but one instance where I had to deactivate it. So it worked fairly well there. And then for fun, let's just go back to the dealership. So you have Tesla's trip planner, which is pretty amazing. Like for instance, if I wanted to drive to Boston, Massachusetts across the country, it will plan the whole trip for you. And it's very detailed. It'll look at tire pressure, outside ambient temperature, elevation, even if like wind, like if there's a 20 mile headwind, that could affect your range. And it'll tell you how much range you'll have when you arrive at the supercharger and how long to charge for. So yeah, it's possible to drive pretty much anywhere in the US almost using Tesla's proprietary charging network, and it'll always have your back. The trip planner will always know that make sure you have enough range to reach your destination. So that pretty much takes away all the mileage anxiety. And then if you want to find superchargers, you can use this button right here and it'll navigate you to them. Okay, so let's go back to the dealership. All right, 2.1 miles. All right, let's see how it does pulling. I expect it to get tripped up in this situation, but we'll just give it a try. I'm not going to try to make things like rose colored or anything like that. We'll just show you how it is, the good and the bad, but I think it's mostly good. So it's just being a little hesitant. If there were people behind me, I'd probably hold on, and then it didn't really stop there fully for the stop sign. So I don't know, probably not the most perfect situation there, but that's why, you know, Tesla says that you need to pay attention and keep your hand on the wheel because it's your responsibility to make sure it doesn't get in an accident. You can't blame the software for getting in an accident and doing something bad if you're distracted or not paying attention. So, and that's why it's not perfect. That's why they don't let these drive around as robo-taxis yet, unsupervised by humans, because it's still learning and it still can get tripped up. But it's amazing what other vehicle can come close that you can buy that can come close to this. And you know, on the used market, you can buy a Tesla with full self-driving capability in the $30,000 range. You know, that's quite amazing to have that level of technology on a used vehicle. It's not like you have to pay $100,000 or $150,000 for it for some of the most you know, high-tech driving experience out there. And here's another area where it gets a little confused. We have a green arrow here, but at this particular light, it does not want to go through it. So I'm just gonna hit the throttle and just say it's okay to go. without disengaging. And then I'm going to speed it up right here. And then I guess the last tricky part is how it navigates this rotary. I'd give it about 50-50. I go through this rotary up here pretty much every day in my commute to work, and I give it about 50-50 for the full self-driving to be able to you know, to reasonably navigate through this rotary without getting confused or tripped up or spazzing out. But I can tell you, when I first got my Tesla, it couldn't do this rotary at all. It was a total S show. So after a year and a half of software updates, it does far better, far better in these rotaries than it did when I first started using it. And it'll just continue to get better as the software improves. That's the beauty of having the full self-driving capability, owning it, is that you're going to get all the software updates in the future. So if you have this car 10 years from now, you know, think about how much more advanced full self-driving will be 10 years from now. And most likely, I think, will be cracked, and then that will be a big deal. Because think, you know, how long does it take to train a driver? You have to have a baby, you have to raise them, they have to go to school, they have to get their driver's license. You know, so it'd take 18 years to train a human driver to be able to drive a car, to be a chauffeur or taxi driver. But when they crack full self-driving capability, you just have a software. You know, once you have the software, you can copy it a million times over, and then all of a sudden you have a software that can perform a complex function like a human being. I mean, think about how many people are employed for driving: delivery drivers, truck drivers. So when you have a software that, you know, artificial general intelligence that can comprehend and safely drive, that's a huge thing. That's a whole groundbreaking thing in the whole labor market, because, you know, in terms of GDP, we're limited by human capital, how many human beings we have who can work. But if you have AI that can do work, and it's limited to how many AIs you can make, then the sky is the limit as far as productivity goes in GDP. But the other, you know, issue will be is like, okay, there's a lot of people that are employed by driving. What's going to happen? Well, we're going to have to find, you know, new jobs for people. Obviously, a lot of people before cars, you know, a lot of people were in the business of, you know, horses, you know, breeding horses, you know, for work or whatever, because they use horses for everything. For moving cargo, for transportation, pulling horses and carriages. There's a whole industry that was disrupted when cars came along. You know, so obviously there's pros and cons to situations like that. Good, it didn't run that red light. Sometimes it pushes the limit, I think, on running these yellow lights, but it didn't do it that time. It stopped. So pretty much the rest of the drive to work is smooth sailing. It's just a straight line. So as you can see, the full self-driving is not perfect. But it's quite amazing, and it's very capable. And once you get your mind wrapped around it, you know its limitations, you can have a very pleasant commute, drive wherever you're going with the full self-driving. It'll make your life a lot better, and potentially, we don't know what it could do in the in the future. It could potentially be a moneymaker for you, because you have this capital good instead of a car that's just sitting there, you know, in your parking garage or in a parking space while you're at work. It could be out there making money as an Uber for you, offsetting the cost of owning a vehicle. You know, so yeah, there we have it. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully it was enjoyable and informative to you, and we hope to see you soon.